Today, you're joining us for a really focused look at something, well, pretty vital for a lot of people. The IELTS General Training Computer-Based Reading Test, specifically looking ahead to 2025.
That's right. We've gone through the syllabus details, looked at how scores work, test tips, and dug into those tricky question types like matching headings and true, false, not given.
Yeah, and our mission here is pretty straightforward. We want to make this part of the test really clear for you so you feel ready, confident, and, not overwhelmed by all the info out there.
Exactly. It's about cutting through the noise. We'll give a quick nod to the whole IELTS structure, listening, reading, writing, speaking just for context.
Right, the bigger picture.
But yeah, today is all about a deep dive into that reading section, and specifically how it works on the computer in 2025.
Okay, let's get started then. What's this reading test actually trying to measure? I was looking at the syllabus info from ADA 247 for 2025,
Uh-huh.
and it says it's checking if you can, like pick out specific details, figure out opinions or attitudes in the text, infer things.
Make logical jumps based on the text. Yeah.
Exactly, and summarize stuff. So it's more than just reading words, it's properly understanding.
And it's fascinating how they test those skills, isn't it? They use different question formats. IDP IELTS gives a list of common ones.
Yeah, I saw that.
But we thought we'd really zoom in on two that, well, often cause headaches. Matching headings and true, false, not given.
Okay, good call. Let's tackle matching headings first. The material we looked at explains it as basically connecting headings to paragraphs. Simple enough on the surface, right?
Sounds simple, but yeah, there's a real technique to it. It's definitely not just matching keywords. That's the biggest mistake people make, I think.
So what is the key?
The absolute core strategy is figuring out the main idea, the central point of the whole paragraph. You have
Uh,
to ask, okay, what's this paragraph really trying to tell me overall?
so it's about seeing the wood for the trees, distinguishing the main message from like examples or extra bits of info.
Precisely. And that's a skill that goes way beyond IELTS, honestly. It's fundamental academic reading.
And the sources mentioned watching out for headings that look really similar. Maybe they use the same words.
Yeah, that's a common trap. They might share keywords, but the actual meaning and nuance can be quite different. You almost have to paraphrase the heading in your head
Right.
and then see which paragraph truly matches that rephrased essence, considering where the whole paragraph is going.
And differentiating main ideas from supporting details, that sounds crucial too. A heading might fit a sentence, but not the whole paragraph's purpose.
Exactly. And remember, there are always extra headings. Not all of them will be used, which can sometimes throw people off. Oh, and format-wise, your answers need to be Roman numerals.
Good tip. Now, thinking about the 2025 computer-based test, the layout's a bit different for this question, isn't it?
It is. You get the headings right there beside the passage on the screen. A lot of people find that easier than flipping pages back and forth like on paper.
Makes sense. Less juggling.
But, and this is important, the actual test content, the passages, the headings, the skills you need, they're exactly the same, computer or paper. The task itself doesn't change.
Okay. Maybe we can make this clearer with those examples. The greenhouse effect one.
Yeah, good one. So you might see a heading like use of a greenhouse, and the paragraph talks about growing plants, so you think, uses.
Right. Seems logical.
But if you look at the whole paragraph, its main job isn't listing uses, it's defining what a greenhouse is and the basic principle of how it works. So the better heading is actually just the greenhouse. It tests that synthesis skill.
I say, it's about the primary function of the paragraph. What about the pasta history example? There was something about the word root.
Ah, yes, the distractor word. Paragraph D mentions a dish having Roman clear roots, but also Arab influence. But the heading that works is the real roots, because the paragraph as a whole goes on to discuss the actual origins of pasta itself.
So root in the paragraph refers to one dish, but the heading, the real roots, refers to the origin of pasta in general, which is the paragraph's main topic.
Got it.
Avoid those word spotting traps.
Exactly. And just quickly circling back to the format, Roman numerals for answers. Just copy them as they appear. Consistency, like with capitalization, is just good practice.
Okay, that really clarifies matching headings. Let's switch gears to the other tricky one. True, false, not given. TFNG. People seem to find this one quite tough.
They really do.
hmm
And the core task, as the practice lessons explain, is deciding. Does the statement match the passage info? That's true. Does it contradict it? That's false. Or is the information just not there? That's not given.
And that not given is often the sticking point, isn't it?
It absolutely is. True means, yep, the passage says this, maybe using different words, but the meaning is the same. False means the passage says the opposite, or something that makes the statement incorrect.
But not given.
Means you just can't tell from the text. The information to prove or disprove the statement simply isn't in that passage. You have to base it only on what's written. No outside knowledge, no assumptions.
That's a key discipline to learn. Stick only to the text.
Crucial.
And here's a bit of good news for test takers from the band score info. You don't lose points for wrong answers in reading.
That's right, no negative marking. So if you're really stuck on a TFNG, make your best guess. Don't leave it blank.
Definitely. Okay, let's look at those examples again, maybe the pyramid building one. Question 1 asked if the controversy was solved.
Right, and the passage says scientists are piecing together the puzzle. Piecing together isn't solved, is it? It implies it's ongoing.
So that makes the statement false. It contradicts the ongoing idea.
Exactly. It requires careful reading of those key verbs.
What about question 2, the one about using water to lubricate paths? Some comments mention confusion about lubricate.
Yeah, people often think lubricate means oil or grease.
Yeah.
But the passage talks about wetting the sand. Liz's explanation in the comments was, great lubricate just means reducing friction to help movement. Water does that.
So wetting the sand is a form of lubrication in this context, meaning the statement is true. It's about understanding the broader meaning of words, not just the most common one, and recognizing paraphrasing.
Absolutely. Then question 3 sledges dragged by animals, not humans. What did the text say?
It said manually, or sometimes by using beasts of burden. Manually means by hand, by humans.
So the statement directly contradicts the text.
Yeah.
Here, false.
Now, question 4, did the Romans learn techniques from the Egyptians? This feels like a classic not giving setup.
It is. The passage says Romans used similar techniques. Similar. It doesn't say where they learned them. Could have been Egyptians, could have been independent invention, could have been someone else. We don't know from the text.
So, not given. You can't assume the link just because the techniques were similar.
Precisely. Resist that urge to fill in the gaps yourself.
And question 6, about people believing magic might have been used. The passage says, nothing magical, as is commonly thought.
That phrase, as is commonly thought, is the key. It tells you that, yes, people do commonly think or believe it involved magic, even though the passage argues against it.
So the statement many people believe is actually true because the passage acknowledges that common belief. Wow, that's subtle.
It is. You have to read every part of the statement and the relevant text carefully.
Dealing with numbers, like in the spam examples and Liz's comments, seems like you need to look beyond just the digits.
Definitely. A statement might say spam increased considerably to reach 300 billion. But if the text just says more than 300 billion in 2013 with no earlier figure.
You can't confirm an increase. You only have one data point.
Exactly. So that would be not given. You need the comparison implied by increased.
Liz's comments online sound really helpful for clarifying these points.
Incredibly helpful. She constantly pushes learners to focus on meaning, not just matching words. She explains words like all or some, warns against overthinking, clarifies vocabulary like lubricate or different uses of may, stresses synonyms, paraphrasing, understanding, comparison, all the things we've been talking about.
So the takeaway for TFNG is read the statement carefully first. Understand what true, false, and not given would mean for that specific statement. Then check the passage, focusing purely on the meaning provided.
That's the core of it. Deep understanding, not superficial matching.
Okay, so we know how these questions work. How does this all feed into the final score?
Well, the band score info is pretty clear. Your reading score comes directly from the number of correct answers out of the 40 questions. Simple as that.
And no penalty for wrong answers, as we said.
Correct. No penalty. Just points for correct ones.
And it's worth remembering the scoring is different for general training compared to academic,
Yes,
right?
absolutely. The score tables converting correct answers to band scores are different because the tests themselves have different content and arguably slightly different levels of difficulty in the passages. So make sure you're looking at the GT score table.
Good reminder. Okay, let's wrap up with some general reading tips, drawing from the resources and Liz's advice again.
Right. I think the first point is maybe the most fundamental. Be realistic about where your English is right now. Knowing your level helps you know what to work on.
Absolutely. And practice is key, isn't it? But specifically with general training tests.
Yes. Get familiar with the GT format. The types of texts often shorter, more everyday topics in the first sections compared to academic. Though Liz does make a good point that using academic practice tests can also be helpful,
Why is that?
because the skills and the question types are fundamentally the same. Matching headings is matching headings, TFNG is TFNG, whether it's a GT or AC passage. So AC practice can still build those core skills.
Makes sense. So during the test, what's the main focus?
Locate the answers. Decide on the answer. Don't get bogged down trying to understand every single word you don't know. Focus on the task. And
Yeah.
manage your time. Don't get stuck.
Yeah, time pressure is real.
Yeah.
And you mentioned being aware if grammar matters, like in sentence completion.
Right. Some question types need a grammatically correct answer to fit the sentence. Others don't. Pay attention to the instructions. And using all caps for answers is fine if you prefer it.
Okay. And just to quickly recap those specific strategies. Matching headings look for the paragraph's overall aim, its main point.
Not just keywords. And TF&G really understand the statement first, then check the passage for matching or contradicting meaning or lack of information. Focus on meaning. Be ready for paraphrasing.
Right. So pulling all this together for the IELTS General Training Computer-Based Rating in 2025, it really tests your ability to dig into a text, find details, get opinions, infer meanings, see the main points.
Yeah, you'll face different questions, but those two we focused on, matching headings and true false not given, they really test that deeper comprehension. Getting good requires strategy, focusing on meaning over just words, and really knowing the test format.
Okay, so that brings us to a final thought for you, the listener. We've talked a lot about understanding implied meaning, about not just taking things literally in this test. So here's something to think about. How could practicing reading comprehension more broadly? Maybe reading different kinds of articles, analyses, opinion pieces, things beyond just IELTS books. How might that not only help you with the specific test section, but also just make you a sharper, more critical reader in general, better able to navigate all the information you encounter every day?
That's a great point. We definitely encourage you to go back to the sources we discussed, look for more official IELTS prep materials, and keep building both your skills and your confidence.